guys? Good morning, good afternoon, good evening to everyone. Welcome to episode 3 of Somewhere in the Live Stream. I am your host, Ryan Sprague, and we have a special guest host tonight who's going to be joining us in just a sec. I do want to say hi to everyone in the chat joining us tonight. We've got UFO Nut, we've got Kelly, Metal, Hendrix, Ian Smith, Ryan Baker, Steven is here, Dalen the Angry Sauerkraut is here. She finally made it to a live stream on time. Welcome, Dalen. Welcome. We've got David here. Looking forward to this from New Zealand. Thank you, David. Thank you so much for being here. Guys, this is going to be a fun show. We've got an awesome UFO video of the week that was just posted by Tom DeLong, of all people. Our special guest host and I did a little digging. We were able to find the original poster of this video. So we're going to break that down, look at it with you guys. And we want your thoughts. Put them in the comments below of what you think this UFO might be when we get to it. Other than that, we've got some cool news stories for you. And then for the latter half of our conversation, we're going to be talking all things Australia, UFOs in the US, and what's going on down under. So you know what that means. Our special guest is from down under. He's joining us on this early morning over there. Let's bring him in, I think for the very first time on Somewhere in the Skies or Somewhere in the Live Stream. We have Grant Lavac. Welcome.
Ryan, thank you, my friend. It's great to be with you. Thanks for having me on. It is early. I've got my Somewhere in the Skies blend to get me going.
Thanks, buddy. I believe it's the Black Triangle blend, if I'm not mistaken. That's awesome. Oh, well, hey, I know it's early for you and our New Zealand listeners, our Australian listeners. So thank you to you, and thank you to everyone joining us over there.
It's a pleasure to be with you. And for any of you listeners that have young ones out there, I'm usually up at 5 a.m. with my 3-year-old. So I've been up for a couple of hours on my second cup of coffee already. So I'm good to go.
Good. That's what that dark roast is
Exactly.
for sure, man. Well, hey, I wanted to have you on because a lot has been going on in the UFO world with the United States government. Obviously, it's all we've been talking about for the past few years, but a lot of people in the United States forget that there are other countries out there. There's other continents where this stuff is happening. And whether or not the governments in those countries are doing anything about it is a completely different story. And that's kind of what I want to talk to you about in the latter half. But, I've got some news stories that I kind of want to break down with you first, if that's cool.
Totally cool. Well, actually, before we jump in, I was going to ask you. You've been in Scotland now for a while. I haven't noticed any Scottish twang in your voice yet. But how are you? How are you enjoying your time in Scotland?
Oh my God! Thank you for asking. It's been fantastic, man. I mean, this place is magical. And I don't use that term lightly. It's such an old place. It's mystical. There's a lot of history in
I've never
Scotland,
been.
and
I would love to go. Yeah.
you've got a place to stay when you come over here.
Oh, thank you, my friend. Have
It's
you
just
found
crazy, man.
Have you found a Broadway equivalent yet?
Let's see. I have gone to a couple very small theater productions here in Edinburgh, where I live. We have a wonderful playhouse that puts on community theater here. Very, very talented bunch of people. There's a few sort of more upper tier theaters that get, your Wickeds and your Lion Kings and Phantom of the Opera, stuff like that. I have not been yet. I've only been to London a few times to see kind of the Broadway adjacent West End stuff.
Gotcha. Okay. Very cool. Well,
Yeah,
you got some.
yes.
You got some big shows out there. So it sounds like it's not too far from your home in New York City.
Not at all, man. I miss New York, but I am loving Scotland. So thank you for asking.
No,
I
you're welcome.
appreciate
You're
that.
welcome.
You'll have to keep listening to the Somewhere in the Live Streams every week and see if my accent slowly starts
I'll
to
look for it.
change.
Yeah, exactly. Very cool.
Well, hey, why don't we take a look at this first story that that came to us, and this is, let me pull this up here. We have, has artificial intelligence found potential alien technosignatures hidden in radio signals from space. This was pretty exciting. Um, Vice Motherboard actually came out with this story recently. And I'm just going to go ahead and read a little bit here, and I'll get your thoughts on this as
Yeah.
well, Brent. A new paper published in the journal Nature Astronomy is trying to look at new ways to tackle the idea of finding alien signals. And this is being done through SETI, actually. Using telescope data that was first collected in 2016, the machine learning algorithm analyzed over 480 hours of data from 820 stars and identified 8 signals of interest that previous algorithms, excuse me, have not detected. That's pretty interesting. 8 of them.
Mm.
Peter Ma is the first author of the paper. He's an undergraduate at the University of Toronto, and he told Motherboard in an email, while AI has been applied to SETI's radio data in the past, this new approach takes the search completely out of human hands. Previously, people have inserted machine learning components into various pipelines to help with the search. This work relies entirely on just the neural network without any traditional algorithms supporting it and produced results that traditional algorithms did not pick up. So I guess let's kind of break that down. A lot of the AI that we see, it has to be programmed somehow. And
Mm.
that usually comes from human hands. But now, where, the more we start to understand and develop this AI, the more it's going to learn and be able to do it on its own. So I think it's pretty cool that SETI is kind of getting at the forefront of this when for so long they've been known as kind of the what was it that Stanton Friedman used to call it? The silly effort to investigate, I think it was. So
Yeah.
this is pretty cool. What do you make of this story?
I agree, man. Well, if you look back to like using the infamous WOW signal, for example, from
Right.
1977, if you think about all the potential Earth-based radio waves, interference, atmospheric pollution, and so on, there was no technological capability back then to kind of filter out all of that stuff, and it was all very much done by hand. You had human eyes on the data, whereas now, I mean, look at what can be done with machine learning algorithms, data mining, data analysis that requires very little human oversight, eyes on the page, so to speak. I mean, think about what the Hubble telescope's been able to do, and obviously the AI and the machine learning have been able to apply to the data that's been collected since, I mean, Hubble, when was that launched? 1990. That's built on technology that's more than 30 years old. And so look what the capabilities are with new technology like the James Webb. And I mean, the terabytes upon terabytes of data that's going to be collecting, and that will be filtered and analyzed by AI and machine learning. So it's very exciting to see that, um, AI has already preliminary picked up these potential 8 signals that are worthy of further investigation, because then, hey, let's point the James Webb that way and see what we can see what can be found. So I mean, it'd be fascinating to learn, where those 8 signals originate, what star systems, how many light years away are they, and so on. So I think it's incredibly exciting to see, when science is only complemented and advanced with new technology. My apologies, my little one in the background screaming there.
No
It's
worries.
it's exciting times for SETI, that's for sure, because I know they've kind of been the Jon Snow of the search for extraterrestrial intelligence for a long time. The kind of the bastard child, because they haven't found anything yet. But I think it's exciting.
Yeah, yeah, and Peter Ma kind of concludes here with this. In the best case scenario, these signals may include embedded information about the engineering of the technology, or even a collection of technosignatures from an alien civilization. So again, just hearing them talk about this gets me excited because
Mm.
you've got something like what Avi Loeb's doing with the
Yeah.
Galileo project, sort of looking for the same thing. These techno signatures. It's no longer the days of just looking for radio signals and stuff like that. Like we're now looking for technology on moons, on other
Mm.
planets, whether it's actual machinery or things that look artificial or even things like light and pollution, signs
Yep.
that something was built in a place. It's fascinating. Again, I think this is great that SETI is finally getting in on this. And you have to wonder, how much influence has a lot of the UFO conversation had on them taking this
Yeah.
next big step? I don't know. What do you think?
And how much influence has the Galileo project had, and with under Avi Loeb? I mean, I think Avi's been fairly critical of SETI over the years because they've been a bit, one-minded. So I would love to get Avi's thoughts, and I'm no doubt he'll be posting a blog article soon on this preliminary research or news that's come out of SETI. But yeah, I mean, it's exciting, and I think it's not unreasonable to think that with everything that's happened within the last 5-6 years, from 2017 to now, with the topic of UAP being discussed not just at Department of Defense and a congressional level, but there is a significant public interest now on this topic, more so greater than I think there has ever been before, especially with the younger generations that are more, accepting of the potential for there to be non-human intelligence, around next door and now a neighboring star system. I think it's very promising and encouraging to see SETI now come out publicly and state that, hey, this is something that's worthy of further investigation and analysis, because we might be onto something here.
Absolutely. Here's a question for you. Do you think, we've got this NASA study going on too with UFOs. Do you think they have anything to do with this? Is SETI working with NASA? Is NASA working with SETI? Is Galileo working with SETI? Like, there's so many of these different independent organizations, whether government funded or funded from the outside, looking into this stuff. And it seems like they're all sort of trying to do the same thing. You think they'd want to all work together? I don't know. What do you think?
Well, if you take it back to the UFO community, we know that compartmentalization has kind of you know led to the stagnation of understanding of different technologies. I mean, if crash retrievals are indeed true, and the US government has been sitting on technology for 70 plus years but haven't been able to figure out because everything is so compartmentalized, then it's promising to see, and it would be encouraging to see this welcoming of collaboration across different sectors and industry, NASA, SETI, Galileo project, talking to each other to try and better understand the nature and extent of not just UAP, but are we the smartest kid on the block, so to speak, as Avi puts it? So I think collaboration is the only way that science can be advanced or effectively advanced to benefit our understanding of our place in the universe and humanity itself. So if they collaborate, fantastic. I think it's a wonderful thing for them to consider. They shouldn't be so protective of, this is our study, this is our research, we're not going to let anyone in. And I think again, Avi Loeb, the Galileo project, has really spearheaded the collaborative effort, just with the number of academia and scientific folks that he's brought into his effort. So it would be very, very encouraging to see SETI welcome collaboration from other subject matter experts and so on. Yeah.
Absolutely. I honestly feel like this is the year of science, man. Like, we had the whole government UFO thing. The report dropped here or excuse me, the report dropped there in the United States. I have to get used to that. I'm no longer
Yeah.
there. And we had a lot of that going on. Military UFO sightings, blah, blah, blah. We've heard all that a million times for the past few years. I honestly feel like now we're going to start inching closer to whatever intelligence may lie behind possibly some of these UAP. We'll see. We'll see. But
Absolutely. And look, and probably a comment I should add too, like NASA, they're very, very early on in the piece too. I think, I mean, the $100,000, the peanuts that they've committed to is completely preliminary. I think they're just doing, they're going on a bit of a fact-finding mission to say, hey, there is something worthy of further analysis and investigation here. So I wouldn't be surprised that when we hear from NASA, and I think it's the middle of this year with their the results of their study, I think that is going to then position NASA to say, hey, this is what we recommend be invested to further studying this topic. So I think it's a very, very early conversation for NASA at this point, but it is, again, very promising that they're stepping up and they're taking an interest in the topic.
absolutely. Earn your keep there, NASA. We've been banking on them for decades and decades now with the UAP topic, and they haven't really shown us anything, but this could be their time.
Totally, if NASA lead the way, then hopefully other space agencies from around the world will do the same. You know, so both the Canadian Space Agency and Australian Space Agency, they don't have any interest or appetite for the UAP topic. So, but that may change. The tide may change if they see NASA taking more of a serious approach in the years to come. So,
Absolutely. Let's go, NASA. I love it, man. Well, hey, let's move on to our next story. And we also want to know what you guys think before we move on. Put in the comments below, put them in the live chat. What are you looking forward to when it comes to SETI's new endeavor with this artificial intelligence? Let us know in the comments below. All right, let me see who else we got here before we move on. Grant, welcome, Jake. Welcome, Lars. Sonic Gravity is here.
hey, my
Terry
man.
Natras is here. Sonic Gravity, love, love, love it. Was just talking to them over on Twitter. Speaking of someone I was just talking to over on social media, I was just talking to Vinny Adams, our mutual colleague and friend. He was doing an Instagram live, and I brought up that I was going to be talking about this next news story tonight, and this is a case that he has something to do with, actually, with his group here in the UK, UAP Media UK. And he dropped a little bomb on me in his Instagram live that I did not know about. So I'll bring that up at the end of this story.
Interesting. Okay.
Yeah, really interesting. This story comes to us from the Falkirk Herald here in Scotland. Researchers hunt for photographer behind famous UFO image. Guys, if you don't know about the Calvine UFO, I don't know where you've been this past year. It was the talk of the town for a while now. One of the clearest UFO photos ever taken, allegedly. This photo, a little background for you guys. Let me just read from the article here. On August 4th, 1990, two young chefs had been walking in the Calvine area of Scotland when they spotted a strange diamond-shaped object in the sky. Short time later, they heard the sound of an RAF jet approaching. The plane seemed to change course and circled the UFO for a time before returning to its original course. That's when they snapped the photo you're looking at right now, guys. The object then shot off into the sky and disappeared. Convinced that they had seen a UFO, the men passed the photograph along to a local newspaper. However, it was promptly handed over to the Ministry of Defense and was never published. The image would stay classified for over 30 years, and I believe it was supposed to be classified for another like 50, 70, something like that, Grant. It turns out that a RAF press officer, Craig Lindsay, had actually broken protocol and stashed a copy of this photo in a desk until he finally revealed it to Dr. David Clark, one of my colleagues over at UAP Media UK. And now David Clark he works with Sheffield Hallam University, and he's been attempting to track down the individual who took the original photo. Sort of the update that this article brought forward, Grant, is on the back of the original photo is the name of the photographer, but that name has not yet been released publicly. But David has confirmed the man in question did live, and work at a hotel where the chef photographers had worked. David Clark has also traced a number of former colleagues of the photographer. And then, Grant, when I brought this up to Vinny, he also mentioned that we're going to be getting some new updates on this in the coming
Wow.
weeks, months. That not only did they possibly locate the photographer, they may have possibly located the pilot of the jet that you see in
Wow.
that photo. So, dude,
Interesting.
I don't. If that's true, if any of this comes to fruition, and we find out A, who the photographer is, and B, the pilot that may have been in that jet, wow. I can't even imagine
Well,
that'll
I
blow this
think
case wide open.
game over. I think it puts it to bed that this is, I mean, so many people have looked at this image and say, oh, it's just a reflection in a pond, and
Right.
people have balked at the image and stuff. But I mean, look how many additional data points that would bring to the conversation if you're able to get the pilot on record and the photographer. I mean, you're going to be able to get from the photographer, a detailed testimony from, well, what happened leading up to the event, during the sighting, post, and exactly the same from the pilot. You're going to get so much more anecdotal evidence that's going to cooperate other pieces of the puzzle. So it's incredibly exciting to learn that potentially you can have more people come forward and reveal information. So one thing I did find interesting, though, is in that article, because I noticed Nick Pope has been very mum on the topic. He was the one that he was with the Ministry of Defence, and he commissioned an artist to create a rendition of this photo, which there's a resemblance, but obviously in his artist rendition there is background rolling mountains and so on. But what I found interesting is that on the 1st of February, Nick Pope put out a tweet saying that essentially, basically, still neither he or MOD have confirmed or denied that this photo is one of the originals that was in MOD's possession. And in the article, if you read the article, it says image credit MOD and the National Archives, and then obviously the RAAF or the RAF officer that released the photo. So I just found that an interesting tidbit that MOD's been totally mum on this photo, yet you've got the journalists going saying, well, this is image credit MOD, so this is obviously what they've got in their possession.
Yep. And this is what happens, man. Like they walk it back, walk it back, walk it back, and then they're proven either right or wrong. The MOD might deny it, but then someone will come along and say, "No, I worked for the MOD. Definitely, that was our photo." Okay. You bring up Nick Pope, a very controversial figure in the UFO field, when it comes to having worked with the MOD. I don't want to get into the controversy. I don't want to cause drama. I saw the tweet that you mentioned, and when Nick said that neither the MOD or I have confirmed this to be the photo, my sort of gut reaction to that was, I don't care. I don't care what Nick Pope has to say about the photo, honestly. And I'm cool with
Because
Nick. Like, I've never had a
because it
problem with him,
yeah,
but I
totally. Well,
just
it
don't
doesn't
understand why
really.
that matters.
No, it doesn't, because it doesn't add to our understanding of the case, or it doesn't further our revealing of additional information. It's just I just found it interesting for someone that has touted Calvine for so long, and obviously went to those lengths of having an artist rendition created, and now to not want to I mean, there might be a very good reason why he can't comment on this photo, because if it is indeed still classified, then he might be going into territory that he shouldn't by saying anything. So there's quite possibly a very good reason why he's saying what he's saying. But I agree. That's why it's extremely exciting that you've got now these two witnesses, that if there's the potential for them to come forward and talk with David and his team and reveal additional information, that will certainly, I think, put it to bed for folks that have played the skeptical and the debunk card on this for so long. I mean, we still don't know what the object in the Calvine photo is, but certainly you would hope that some testimony from the photographer and the pilot would reveal some more breadcrumbs that might give us a bit more of clarity as to what that picture might be.
Absolutely. I couldn't put it better myself. When it comes to any UFO photo or video, we can debate till the end of time. Look at the Mosul orb, we've been talking about that for a few weeks now. And the problem is we just don't have enough data to properly analyze it. Will Jeremy Corbell and George Knapp reveal some of that data? Only time will tell. I honestly hope so. But until we have more data and testimony about the Calvine UFO photo, it's either a top secret craft, it's a UFO from another planet, or it's an island and a boat. That's the three I'm going with, man, until that happens. But I'm excited to see what comes of this.
Put it this way: if you believe what MOD is saying, that in declassified documents from MOD, you had I think on an article that Nick Pope authored on his website, said of a declassified MOD file, page 35 and 36 of that classified file has these photocopies of the Calvine photo. And in doing some homework and reading this article ahead of our chat today, if you take the black and white photocopy of that Calvine photo and you remove the background and you superimpose it over that released photo, it's a perfect match. So it's a no-brainer that's the real deal that we're looking at. We just now need more data points on that entire incident, and that's why it's exciting that these two folks are potentially there's a potential for them to come forward, because again, it fills in a lot more of the gaps for us.
Absolutely, man. Well, let's fill in the gaps on this one. This is our UFO video of the week, guys. This is interesting. So I believe it was yesterday, our good old buddy Tom DeLonge of To the Stars Academy, former To the Stars Academy, said, "Enjoy, they are real. To the Stars Media will be turning real events like these into major feature films and television series to help bring the facts to the world. Note the whirling sound from the propulsion." We're going to get to the video in just a sec. Man, this is pretty interesting, Grant. I guess, you know what? Let's just play the video and I'll get your thoughts on the other side. I think that's the best way to do it. Guys, hold tight, watch the video, and we're going to come back and get your thoughts as well in the chat about what you think this UFO is, and we'll give some more background on it. Let me give you a little background before we show it. A man named Bob, of course, just Bob, supposedly witnessed this on October 27th, 2013 in Michigan. So I'm going to go ahead and play that, and we'll see you on the other side, guys. And then it's gone. Wow, man. I mean, talk about getting everything, getting your bang for your buck. What do you think? Initial thoughts on that video when I first showed it to you?
Well, pardon my Scottish, but I almost shit my pants when I watched that for the first time, because I mean, it's fascinating, but it's also incredibly frightening. I mean, you look at it, you put yourself in the shoes of that camera operator, you think, holy moly, if that is what it's claimed to be, then man, that's an incredibly terrifying experience. So on first view, man, I was fascinated and intrigued. But then unfortunately, when I viewed it the second, third, fourth, fifth, sixth, seventh, eighth, ninth time, and so on, it started to become problematic for me, which we can talk about.
I want to get to that for sure. I do want to kind of add this. Pinzer says, talk about promoting a dang TV show. I call BS. Why wouldn't this video have been out before? That is a good question, but we were able to dig and actually find the source of this this video. This is done by Dave Beatty. Actually, brought this to my attention. This video was posted 9 years ago, back in 2013, when it actually supposedly took place. Let me pull up here. Whoop, that's your beautiful show. Let's see here. Can I zoom in on this? I can't really read that. There we go. This is what happened. This is from the witness that night. I live in a rural part of Michigan, and the closest major city is Port Huron. I'm going to sort of skip ahead here. Let's see. At that point, I was running out on the road to go further, so I got out of the vehicle to take a better view. Then suddenly the object started moving towards me. It startled me, so I ran like hell for a little bit. It was making a very strange, low swirling noise, so please try and turn up your speaker. We did hear that. Once I moved a distance back, I zoomed out the camera a bit more and noticed the object was hovering directly over my vehicle. Then it started to lower itself as it slowly rotated. This was all in the video, so I won't go through all of it. Once I moved a distance back, I zoomed out the camera a bit more and noticed the object was hovering directly over my vehicle. Then it started to lower itself, started to rotate. Then suddenly it shot straight up into the sky and disappeared. This was very eerie. What the heck do you guys think this is? Thanks, Bob. P.S. For the debunkers that come on here and type fake without doing any in-depth analysis or proof of evidence, that's it. That it's just fake. He says, please just watch it. Also, if they were sitting in my shoes at the time and experienced what I saw, they wouldn't be saying fake either. So, Grant, what do you think? You said you watched this several times. The chat is saying, some say I believe Bob, others say it's a drone. Someone else said this is silly. I don't know. Is it too good to be true?
Well, if we put our critical thinking hat on and we look at, well, what are we given in this video? So there's two important data points. You have visual and you have audio. So after watching the video a couple of times, I thought, you know what? I'm just going to put my noise canceling headphones on and I'm just going to listen to the audio. And so I listened to the audio time and time again. And there are a few problematic pieces in the audio. There's a clear edit. There's a clear cut in the audio at one point. And unfortunately, the audio does not correlate with certain camera shake. It doesn't align with moments of camera shake. So I have some issues with this video in that after the analysis that I've done, and this is just my opinion, I actually think, I don't know what the object is that's captured in the footage, but I do think the original audio was stripped and that two separate audio tracks have been laid over the top to further strengthen the narratives to, this is a UFO beaming down on my car and so on. So I can kind of give you the step-by-step points that why I think that's the case. But and I would encourage your listeners to do the same. If you just listen to the audio, put noise canceling earphones on, close your eyes and just listen to the audio, knowing in your head what you've seen visually, and listen for the inconsistencies in the audio. There's a clear edit. And there is and the big one for me is the end, the whirring sound. What do we know happens when an object moves away that's emitting sound? The sound changes, the pitch changes. There is no fade in that whirring sound as the object ascends above the car. If you have a drone that is hovering and it ascends, what changes? The pitch, the sound that you hear changes because it's moving away from you. So that's what was problematic for me at the very end. If you play it again at the very end, you'll notice that the whirring sound maintains its intensity at the very end as it did throughout the entire clip, basically. And that's a bit of a problem for me, because if the whirring sound is not fading or decreasing in its intensity as the thing is ascending, then that again paints a picture for me that maybe there's been some audio manipulation on this footage.
Okay. Let's go to the end of the video quick, if you don't mind. I'm just going to play that last bit so we get a better sense of what you're talking about here.
See, it only fades at the very end, and you think it would start to change as it starts to ascend. So, that's a problem I had. A few other things that I had an issue with is that I didn't go in full debunking mode, but I tried to think, well, what potentially is it not? What potentially could it be? But I counted the number of steps that, and the other piece before I get
did
to the
the
steps,
same
but,
thing.
Yeah,
We're on the same wavelength, man.
It takes approximately 24 steps backwards. So notice that the object remains perfectly in frame for the most part. There's some camera shake, but it remains in frame throughout most of the clip. So he's obviously backpedaling. He's walking backwards through thick grass or brush in pitch black. So he doesn't know where he's walking backwards, and he's keeping it in frame. So the average stride length for a human is 2.5 feet. Now, if you're walking backwards pitch black at night, you're obviously going to be you're going to half your stride length. So he's walking back, not knowing where he's going. He takes 24 steps backwards before he, in his words, he runs like hell. Well, it wasn't really run like hell. He only ran 8 steps. And when the video cuts from, it starts off looking like it's zoomed in to a degree. And when you hear him break away, the object breaks from frame and you hear his footsteps running, then when it returns back into frame, he's in wide angle. So he's obviously zoomed out whilst he's been running, potentially. But the distance away from the car, after only 24 backpedaling steps and then 8 steps of running, granted, that's a wide angle, but to me, it sounds like if this is a single continuation piece, so it hasn't been edited, after those, that he seems to be too far away from the car with those few number of steps.
Yeah, that's what I thought too. It just didn't sync up with me when you could hear his footsteps. It just didn't add up for me in terms of how far away from the car he appears to be.
And look, I can see, Brad, my critical thinking brother from another mother, he's got some good comments in there as well. But yeah, this is just what stood out for me when I listened to the audio independent of the video. But then you also have to factor in the human element, the human behavior. If we believe what Bob's account, which he documented in writing, is true, that he was, what this thing scared the bejeebers out of me. At no point throughout the footage does he ever utter a word. There's no heavy breathing after his run, or if you're anxious or you're in fear, you would expect that to be a relatively normal, human emotional behavior. There's none of that. There is even after the thing has gone, there is no words spoken or on the clip whatsoever. And there's 25 seconds of additional footage that Tom DeLonge left out of his clip that he posted. So the first 25 seconds shows is taken through the windscreen of the car, shows the car working its way down this dirt road, which has quite a number of fresh tire marks in the road itself. So would that lead one to speculate that maybe this was a premeditated and staged incident? I don't know. You have to consider that as a possibility as well. So Yeah, for me, initially when I looked at it, absolutely fascinated. But then once I kind of looked at the audio is the real piece that, to me, it doesn't necessarily eliminate this of being something. There's obviously something in the sky above the car. What it is, we don't know. Is it an RC drone with a laser pointer? That's one possibility that people have thrown around. But the fact that the audio has clearly been manipulated to maybe strengthen the case for this being a UFO that's beaming down on a car, that presents a problem for me.
Absolutely. You bring up a lot of good points. And I don't know who this is, but I like this Australian Mick West. You have a new title there, Greg.
And look, if you look at the poster, Research for Truth 12, he's only got 2 videos on his channel. There is no record of anything under Research for Truth 12 on the internet, with the exception of a post that he made on a UFO video over a year earlier in October of 2012, I believe it was. He posted some comments. Wow, this is the greatest video I've ever seen. Oh, this is best UFO footage. And then a year later, he comes out with footage of his own. So again, that doesn't necessarily tell us anything, but it's another piece that needs to be considered in its totality when looking at, is this true, or is it potentially a ruse or a hoax?
Yeah, it seems too good to be true, in my opinion, which then ushers in my final question for UFO video of the week. Why did Tom DeLonge post this? I mean, we know he's posted hoaxes in the past. Is this just another irresponsible Tom DeLonge off the cuff sort of thing, or is this to promote his upcoming stuff he's working on? What do you think the motivation is behind this, Grant? Why would he do this?
I think it's the latter. I think there is something to the Stars Academy, which is now very much entertainment focused. I think, and he's even said it in his tweet that, To the Stars Media will be turning real events like these into major feature films and television series to help bring the facts to the world. So I think it's a bit of a teaser as to there's something coming out of To the Stars. Now, this doesn't, the depiction in this footage is consistent with what a lot of people have reported. I mean, but then you also think, well, a lot of people report seeing objects that emit no sound whatsoever. And then this emits a whirring sound. So I'm not changing my tune whatsoever on the UAP topic. I think this is either an incredibly well done hoax, or it is been there's been some manipulation to try and strengthen the story behind it. But even if this is if there's a hoax, it doesn't take away my belief that there are true unknowns out there as well. It is unfortunate, though, that you will have people that want to manipulate others with fake footage and grifting, just to kind of capitalize on the dollar aspect of it, or try and increase their standing in the community or with their peers, family, and friends. So.
Absolutely. I always tell people, when these hoaxed videos come out and we learn that a lot of these people are CGI artists, that this is a calling card to fool the world and show Hollywood and whoever, Disney, Marvel, what they're capable of. I got 4 million views on this UFO video I did. Hire me. And there you go. So unfortunately, those types of people will use our community to kind of flex their CGI muscles and sort of show their resume. So it's unfortunate, but it's the harsh reality of this field we've chosen to embed ourselves in, right?
It does, and then sadly, it adds to the stigma and the ridicule that's long plagued the topic. I mean, if anyone that's that follows other topics like, say, Sasquatch and Bigfoot, we know in 2008 that those 2 guys that held a press conference in Georgia had said that they had shot a Bigfoot and they put it in their ice chest, and that turned out to be the biggest hoax, but the media covered that event like it was groundbreaking stuff, and then they never touched the subject again after being burned. So I think that's the problem that these sort of hoaxing events create, is an environment and feeling the air where people don't want to touch it, and the media stays away from it because they're fearful of being burned and getting it wrong, and then losing street credibility, basically.
Yep, I know. It's frustrating. It's all very frustrating. Well, Grant, thank you. Thank you for sort of putting us back on the ground when it comes to this video, because when I saw it, man, like it gave me chills. I'm like, holy shit. If there is any truth to this, uh this is like this is it. This is the smoking gun video. But then when you start to strip it away and look at it like you did, you start to it's like a movie. The more you go back and watch it, you either start to appreciate it more or you start to see the flaws in it. And
Yeah.
that's why I never really like to revisit films a lot of the time. I just want to watch it once and that's it. I come from a theater background, so with plays, like, yeah, that's live, one and done. That's it. You're not meant to see a play twice.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, for someone who worked on Broadway, I had to see it 8 times a week. So you start to strip away the magic of the experience, and then it's no longer, it's still powerful. And I give everyone the credit in the world for doing that 8 times a week. But it's just you start to see how the sausage is made, as they say. And
Yeah.
it kind of takes away from the experience. So I think, if I had looked at this video for days on end, and kind of stretched out what you were able to do in like 24 hours that I sent you this, I would have come out on the other side a bit more cynical too on it.
Well, you're right. I mean, the magician's illusion is never as magical when you found out how it's done. So, I mean, I would still love to know what that actually is that's
Right.
in the footage. But do I think it's what a lot of people think it is? No, I don't. Based on the manipulation that's in the background and the audio.
Yep. I'm going with, I think it's a drone. Someone did mention in 2009. Yeah, I mean, maybe commercial drones weren't as big back then, but
2013.
excuse me, 2013. Thank you.
Yeah.
Wow. Thank you for clearing that up. That even makes even more of it a possibility, actually. I think the object is real. Let's put it that way. I don't necessarily think this is CGI. I do think the audio was overlaid as you did, because there just some of it just doesn't add up, the sound with the visuals. And also it just to me screams some sort of drone with lighting on it. And how they cast that beam, I don't know. Possibly with some sort of laser, like you said. But yeah, too good to be true. Any last words on the video before we move on here,
No,
Grant?
look, it's definitely fascinating and intriguing to look at, and if it is indeed a hoax, which I think it is, credit to the person for investing the time, energy, and effort to try and pull it off. It's interesting, and it's always fun to have these conversations and talk about it. But sometimes I think it does take away from the conversations that are more valuable to be had on this topic. So I think the hoaxing, it does continue to add to an air of stigma and ridicule on the topic. So it would be nice for there to. I mean, look, it would be nice for Tom DeLonge to be a little bit more sincere in his post. I think he's been very ambiguous with that tweet and positioning it as this is real footage, when once you do your due diligence and your analysis, it's footage of something, but it's not footage what we think it is.
Absolutely. I couldn't agree more. Every week, these UFO videos break my heart, Grant. I swear to God. I'm going to find it. I will have the smoking gun on somewhere in the live stream at some point, guys.
And
But
by the way, I don't want to become the Mick West Down Under. I've always positioned myself as I look at things with a healthy degree of skepticism, but I also keep an open mind as well, which is, I think, what you have to do. You have to, trust but verify, and always be in a position to ask questions and not accept accept things in blind faith and accept to be true on blind faith. So
Absolutely. That's the responsible UFO researcher coming out in you. Well, hey, man, we're going to move on to the topic of the night. That's UFOs in Australia. I do want to take a quick little commercial break here, and we'll come back on the other side and get going on Australia and UFOs. So, guys, if you're just joining us, we are with Grant Lavac. He has an amazing YouTube channel right here on YouTube that we're going to talk about when we come back as well. So stick with us. We'll be right back to talk everything Australia and UFOs with Grant Lavac. Stay tuned, guys. The Somewhere in the Skies podcast is free to listen to every week. But if you would like to help support the show, we have a very active Patreon page where you give what you think the show is worth. In return, you'll get early access to the main show, bonus episodes, and priority to ask our guests your listener questions. Your support truly makes the show continue and grow. So, to learn more and to join, visit patreon.com/somewhereskies. All right, guys, welcome back, and thank you for being with us again. We are with Grant Lavac here on Somewhere in the Live Stream, and I'm excited to talk about this because we've done some episodes in the past when it comes to UFOs in Australia, but we covered case history, but we haven't really covered the sort of sordid history and relationship that the Australian government has with the UFO topic, if there even is one. So what I want to do, Grant, is I was watching one of your live streams the other night, and you had this brilliant clip that you put together at the top of the live stream. So with your permission, if it's okay, I'd love to show that now, and then we'll come back and discuss if that's cool.
yeah, absolutely.
Awesome. Let me go ahead and play that right now for you guys.
Now, we call the relationship between the United States and Australia the Unbreakable Alliance. We spoke about the complex and changing security environment that we face. We discussed our strong strategic alignment.
We have also taken steps to create a more seamless defence industrial base between our two countries. We need to be working closer together to enhance our military capability.
Unidentified aerial phenomena are a potential national security threat, and they need to be treated that way. For too long, the stigma associated with UAPs has gotten in the way of good intelligence analysis. Pilots avoided reporting or were laughed at when they did. Today, we know better. UAPs are unexplained, it's true, but they are real.
In what capacity, if any at all, have you been briefed on UAP?
Senator, I haven't had any specific briefings in relation to UAP since I've taken over.
And we've brought many allies and international partners into our discussions on UAP.
Given how close we are to the US, has there been any discussions with Australian intelligence services or the Air Force in relation to their
I'm not aware
approach
of
to
any
this?
formal discussions that we've held with the US.
Navy and Air Force crews now have step-by-step procedures for reporting on UAP on their knee board and in their post-flight debrief procedures.
Can you see a reason why would you understand why they are implementing?
No, Senator.
The message is now clear. If you see something, you need to report it.
What encouragement and reporting mechanisms are afforded to the men and women of the ADF in relation to that?
Senator, we have a really strong reporting culture. If there's anything related to safety or airworthiness issues, then we strongly encourage our pilots to report those. There's also mechanisms through standard operational means, our air traffic control.
We are committed to working together to meet and address shared challenges.
Is this a UFO question?
You could call them a UFO if you like, Senator Wong.
Really?
They're now technically
So just so
classified as
I'm clear,
unidentified aerial phenomena. What do you think? Do you think it's funny?
Yo, that last moment there, man. I wanted to wring her neck, first of all. And second of all, good for him. May I ask, who is the gentleman, the senator that they're speaking to? We need to give his name. He's a hero.
Yeah, so Senator Peter Whish-Wilson he's senator for Tasmania. He's the only Australian senator that to date has shown the courage and gumption to raise the topic of UAP in Australian Parliament and ask questions. So he first, that was called a Senate estimates hearing, where essentially senators they scrutinize government expenditure basically to make sure that taxpayer money is not being wasted. And so on the 27th of October of 2021, after obviously the preliminary assessment on UAP came out from ODNI on the 25th of June of that year, he asked the then Chief of Air Force, Air Marshal Mel Hupfield, about UAP in Australian context. And he was never really satisfied with the responses that came from the Royal Australian Air Force and the Australian Department of Defence. So on the 9th of November of last year, he then pressed the current Chief of Air Force, Air Marshal Robert Chipman, on UAP, and with the seriousness, the interest, the serious interest that our US ally is taking on this topic. Well, why isn't Australia really taking it seriously as a potential national security threat and safety of flight risk? And that Senator Penny Wong, the lady at the end there that made those ignorance is bliss kind of comments, I think unfortunately that's a reflection of far too many people in the Australian government, as well as the Australian Department of Defence, and kind of reflects their position on the topic. They think it's science fiction, whereas our friends across the pond in the US see it incredibly differently. So that clip was really designed, I put that together to show that the Australia-US alliance is the strongest that it's ever been. And I'm proud that Australia is a strong ally with the United States, but their positions on the UAP topic could not be further apart. And I think that's a real problem.
Right. And you highlight so well in that clip kind of the juxtaposition between what the US is doing now and Australia. And I mean, look, it doesn't make the senators, the members of the government look too good when they have absolutely no interest in the topic, even when it comes to national security. However, the guy did mention, and excuse me that I don't know all their names. That's my American ignorance coming into play here. Saying we have a very good reporting culture. Do you think that's true? Do you think that members of the Australian military are reporting UFOs and they're just being told, like the United States was for so long, don't report this, don't worry about it? Is the stigma still there?
Look, I think they have a strong reporting culture when it comes to incidents and accidents and near misses, but not when it comes to aircraft they can't identify. There's currently no reporting mechanism in place whatsoever for military pilots and aviators to report UAP or to report aircraft they cannot identify. And that I think that's a huge problem, because again, UAP could be a myriad of different things. I mean, we all jump to the non-human intelligence aspect, but it could be foreign adversarial, it could be airborne clutter, it could be misidentification, it could be atmospheric phenomena and so on. But if pilots are seeing something in the sky that they cannot identify that has the potential to become a safety of flight risk, then that is a huge concern. That's a big problem. And that's where we are today in the US. I mean, Ryan Graves is advocating heavily for this, saying that, after the 11 near misses that the ODNI reported in its preliminary assessment, and all of our aviators having these encounters with UAP on the East Coast, with all these incursions in their working areas, there is a huge safety of flight risk issue here. And I think the Royal Australian Air Force and Australian Department of Defence is doing its members of the Australian Defence Force a disservice by not acknowledging that our US ally and Five Eyes and AUKUS partner is taking this topic seriously as a safety of flight issue and a potential national security threat. And they're burying their head in the sand in this topic. And they have the audacity to come out with a document, a Chief of Air Force brief on unidentified aerial phenomena, which I was able to secure for release via FOIA last year, that the Royal Australian Air Force came to the determination that UAP are one of three things: foreign adversarial technology, benign phenomena, or it could be human-made technology. There's no consideration given whatsoever that UAP could be something else other than those three things. There's no catch-all other bin that ODNI infamously captured in their preliminary assessment. Now, how can the Royal Australian Air Force come to that determination as to what UAP is likely to be or is not likely to be when, one, it hasn't even read the classified, it hasn't been privy the classified data and the classified reports from ODNI, because documentation released through FOIA has told us that the US hasn't been in contact with us. We're not interested in collaborating on this topic with allies. And the Royal Australian Air Force has had as almost a longer history investigating the UAP UFO topic as the US. The Royal Australian Air Force has been investigating UAP UFO from the 1950s through to the mid-1990s. In 1996, they formally ceased their investigation of the UAP topic. They ceased taking reports from the public because they apparently could not find any compelling or other scientific reason to devote resources to the further investigation of the topic. So the fact that the Australian Department of Defence, Royal Australian Air Force, hasn't seen any of the classified data that US Congress members have seen behind closed doors in SCIFs that's keeping them up at night. And the Royal Australian Air Force has not even touched this topic since 1996. They've already made a determination that UAP, move along, folks, there's nothing to see here. That's the position of the Royal Australian Air Force. And I think that is, it's incredibly frustrating that they're towing the line and they're burying their heads in the sand on this topic.
Right. Well, everyone in the chat is saying the same thing. 5 eyes, 5 eyes, 5 eyes, 5 eyes. So let's talk about that for just a moment here, Grant. And I have a follow-up question to that. Do you think any intelligence is being shared with the Australian government on this topic? And also, we learned about ATIP. We thought that in the US they were done investigating this stuff with Project Blue Book. And they kind of said the same as the Australian government. There's nothing, let's move on. It's not a national security threat. It doesn't come from Zeta Reticuli. We're done looking at this. And you're saying that the same happened in Australia. Do you think there are versions of ATIP going on in the Australian government as well?
It's certainly plausible. If it is, it would be happening in the intelligence services. So you're talking about the Australian Signals Directorate, the Australian Geospatial Organization. You've got ASIO, which is the equivalent of the CIA. Unfortunately, those government organizations and agencies are exempt from FOIA. So there is no way that I'm ever going to be able to find out if they so this is the other thing to note as well, and this is what I brought to light in my last live stream that I did, that the recurring theme that we're hearing from the US, whether it be Scott Bray, whether it be ODNI, whether it be Sean Kirkpatrick, whether it be RO, that they are having ongoing engagement and communication with allies to keep them up to date with what their analysis and investigation on the topic has been. And good on them, per their mandate. The National Defence Authorisation Act of fiscal year 22 and fiscal year 23 mandates that the office, RO, coordinate with allies to better understand the nature and the extent of UAP. So they're doing what they're mandated to do. Now, they've said they have, and Scott Bray said this in that clip, that they have brought many allies into discussions on UAP. Well, who are those allies? We know that thanks to the good reporting that Daniel Otis has done, that Canada, the Canadian military and defense, was briefed by the UAP task force in February of 2022, but that's one ally. Who are the other allies? New Zealand, thanks to some of the good work that my friend Colin, who goes under the moniker of UAP Aotearoa, he submitted some FOIA requests to New Zealand, and they have come back and said, look, we haven't had any engagement with the US on the UAP topic. Australia is saying the same thing. They have not been engaged by the US. Well, who's the US been in communication with them?
Right.
I mean, possibly Japan, because we know that there is there's an alliance, a partnership with Japan. So that was a question that I had, and I've tried to find an answer to that question by submitting a FOIA request, a US FOIA request, going for documentary evidence that verifies which allies that the UAP task force, then AIMSOG and now Arrow, has engaged on this topic. And I've also tried to go after that information through Australian FOIA as well, but that's it's not yielding as much fruit as I hope my US FOIA requests that are pending. I should get a response, hopefully March, April, so it's not far away. We'll be able to identify which allies the US has been engaging on this topic. If that many allies comment that Scott Bray testified to in May of last year is in fact a true statement, which I don't. I have no reason to believe that it's not, but I just want to again trust but what is it? Trust but verify. So
Yes, trust but verify.
Yeah.
Christian brings up a really good point here. Elizondo had a slide on countries that ATIP talked to in the SCU meeting, and Australia was on there. Am I correct?
That's right. Yeah, and I brought that up in the recent live stream that I did. Lou Elizondo included that in his presentation, that he had the number of flags, on his slide deck, and Australia was there, New Zealand was there. And it's true, Australia has had a long history investigating the UAP topic, dating back almost as long as the US, 1950s, again, through to the mid-1990s, when they kind of dusted their hands and said, move along, folks, nothing to see here. And there have been folks in Australia that have really been trying to advocate for further scientific study and investigation of this topic. In the US, you had obviously J. Allen Hynek, who in his later years would be advocating for the same from the US. And you had a gentleman in Australia called O.H. Turner, or Harry Turner. He is kind of Australia's J. Allen Hynek equivalent. He was a nuclear scientist that was tasked with trying to understand and investigate the UAP, or what they called unusual aerial sightings in Australia, UAS back then, try to get to the bottom of what UAS, UAP, UFO are. And unfortunately, his findings fell on deaf ears and he was kind of pushed to the wayside. So there have been efforts by the Australian Department of Defence and Royal Australian Air Force in the past to investigate this topic. But there are some current and former members of the Royal Australian Air Force that believe there is no there, that it is simply it's all a ruse by the US to misdirect its foreign adversaries by drawing attention to this topic when it could just be secret, black budget technology, because they want to test it. They want to see how the general populace is going to react to it. So I don't personally agree with that assessment, because this is a topic that has gone back centuries. And if you look at, all of the cave drawings and artwork across many, many different cultures around the world that depict imagery, and particularly in their folklore and culture of these sky beings, then, what is it that they saw that led them to want to scroll down on a cave wall, something that reflects what we would typically in pop culture consider to be extraterrestrial or non-human intelligence. So I don't subscribe to the argument that it's all a ruse and an attempt to misdirect foreign adversaries. I'm 100% certain that is part of it. Sure, absolutely, that there is an effort to misdirect foreign adversaries and get them looking somewhere when they shouldn't be looking over here. But I don't think it's I think that's one part of the puzzle. I don't think it's the be all end all answer to it, though. I think there is definitely something to this phenomena.
Absolutely. Look this way.
That's a long-winded answer for you. So
oh, it's a great answer. Look this way while this goes on. We're seeing that play out right now in the media when it comes to Yeah, the balloon. That's as far as we're going with it. We're not going to talk about it here tonight, guys. I know you're sick of hearing about it. But yeah, man, like again, it astounds me that the entire world can go nuts and drool over a balloon. We don't a balloon-like entity, as the U.S. government might call it. We don't know its purpose, why it's here, how many of them have actually been monitoring us, or what's going to happen next with that whole balloon gate happening. But then you have, these UAP incursions happening with our pilots, not just in the US, all over the place. And it falls on deaf ears.
Yeah.
So you truly do have to wonder what is going to happen with this whole balloon thing? Is this going to tie into the UAP topic at all? It's all people on UFO Twitter have been talking about. And, that's kind of why I wanted to talk about this tonight, is to get people's minds off of what the media is trying to do right now. Like, it's so freaking clear that they want you to focus on this stupid balloon story when there's really interesting stuff happening now, especially with a UAP report that just released.
I think the mainstream media, not just in the US, but Australia, has failed miserably at covering the UAP topic and exercising an ounce of journalistic due diligence and asking questions. I mean, when the news media is trying to get as many, it's revenue advertising. The more people that watch their shows and click their articles, revenue increases. That's their model. But it's a shame that the Chinese balloon, as interesting as it was for a few minutes when I saw it initially, that is getting all of the coverage in the news cycle when you have these reports of incursions in military training spaces and above the USS Omaha and Russell, that it's taken, how long for the military to come out and, Scott Bray come out and said, oh, well, it might be an optical artifact, they still don't know. We still have not been given any definitive explanation as to what those swarms were above the USS Omaha and the Russell. And that is a huge problem. The media should be asking those questions about that incident and not just focusing the 24-hour news cycle on the Chinese balloon. So, but unfortunately, that's the world we live in. So that's where I think you're going to have folks like, independent journalists and those that, Christopher Sharp, I think, does wonderful reporting out of the Liberation Times, and you have D. Dean Johnson, you've got Tyler Rogaway. You might not necessarily agree with everything that those guys put out, but credit to them, they're doing their due diligence and they're asking questions that mainstream media isn't. So we need more. And Ross Coulthard, you've got Leslie Kane, George Knapp. No matter what you think of George Knapp, agree with him, don't agree with him, credit to those folks for at least asking questions that other mainstream journalists aren't.
Absolutely. Well, one last clip I want to play, Grant. I know you got to get going very shortly. Is someone who did take that chance and did want to work with Australia on cases that happened there. And that was James McDonald here in the United States. Back in 1967, he was interviewed for ABC News in Australia. For those of you who don't know, James McDonald was a meteorologist and a UFO researcher. And he wanted to compare Australia reports with the US, and he stressed the global phenomenon and world governments need to work together on this. So if you don't mind, I'm just going to go ahead and play that clip really quick, and then we'll wrap things up here.
Sure.
Let's play that.
Found here that's been of use to you?
I've investigated about 50 or 60 cases since I came down to New Zealand and Australia. Extremely interesting UFO sightings. A lot of help from local investigatory groups in Sydney and Melbourne, and have found as I go through these that the type of sightings are essentially similar to those in the United States.
What are the main similarities?
persons of really quite high credibility reporting unconventional objects, discs, cigar-shaped objects, frequently at very low elevation, hovering over sometimes urban areas, sometimes over cars, following cars. Same kind of public reaction, quite a strong similarity to the American reluctance to report them to official channels because of fear of ridicule. But behind it all, a very large number, a very surprisingly large number of these sightings of quite unconventional objects maneuvering in our airspace.
You have been highly critical of your own government's attitude towards UFOs.
Indeed I have, yes. I've taken a very good look at the American official investigation program, Project Blue Book, run by the Air Force, and I have quite unequivocally described it to scientific colleagues back in the States as superficial and incompetent. But in general, to have this possibility that the world is under something resembling reconnaissance, possibly from some extraterrestrial source, and to go on about our petty ways collectively doesn't seem to me to be a wise situation. So I'm trying to get scientists and governmental agencies to take a look at this at a highly accelerated pace.
Professor MacDonald, thank you very much.
Professor MacDonald talking with Brian King. Well, I've seen a few mysterious objects in my time. In fact, I just happen to have one here with me now. I don't know whether this gadget qualifies as a UFO, an unidentified flying object.
God
Mainly because
damn
it doesn't fly. Still, at least it's an object. Until tomorrow night, good night.
We were so close, man. I love that clip until the very end. But hey, look, they've been doing that up until till 2017. X-Files music, you know?
Yep, I was going to say exactly the same thing. That clip, colorize that clip, play it today, and that could not be further from the truth on where Australia is today on this topic. So James MacDonald's assessment, or his feelings, his sentiment, his reservations on or his frustration with the US government, that's exactly where we are today in Australia. And I think he nailed it on the head that he has, there are incredible things being reported by credible folks. And I think that is very, very true of what's happening down under. And for me, as an Australian citizen and one that's proud of our alliance with our US brothers and sisters and that takes this topic very seriously, you know, and obviously I want our members of the Australian Defence Force to be, you know, out of harm's way and not have safety of flight risks, you know, them being bombarded with that potentially. Ross Coulthart, in some correspondence that I had with him, he nailed it on the head. He said, all we want, and this is true for me as an Australian, all we want is for UAP to be acknowledged, investigated, and conclusions drawn as to their origins, wherever they may be from, whatever they may be, or whenever they may be from. Because who knows, you know, everything is on the table until it's not. So unfortunately, the Australian Department of Defence, Royal Australian Air Force, isn't even prepared to acknowledge that a conversation needs to be had on the topic. And that is, that's incredibly frustrating. So for me personally, my mission really is to continue to advocate for this topic to be taken seriously by members of the Australian government, members of parliament, senators. And I say this not for those that are watching that may be in Australia or in the UK or in the US. I don't say this to impress you, but to impress upon you that you can make a significant difference and you can influence the thinking of those that you elect into positions of authority. Because I've had frequent ongoing engagement with Senator Whish-Wilson, who again has been the only senator in Australia that's asked questions on this topic to date. And granted, he has so many topics on his plate that he is taking seriously that are important to his constituents, but he and his staff don't have the time to invest into the exploration and research of this topic. So through my engagement with Senator Whish-Wilson and a couple other colleagues, in preparation for his hearing, his questioning at the Senate estimates hearing on the 9th of November, I submitted 35 questions to his office for consideration to assist with his lines of inquiry at the Senate estimates. And every single question that he asked were questions that I authored along with my colleagues. So that shows you that you can make a difference and influence the thinking of your elected representatives. And I pay complete credit to my good friend Luis Jimenez for getting me off my ass and getting in the game and not watching from the sidelines, because if it wasn't for him and the great work that he did with the Big Phone Home initiative, I wouldn't be where I am today. And now, obviously, granted that Luis Jimenez's position on this topic has now changed, and I can't blame him based on everything that he has gone through and witnessed in the last 12 months. But I give him full credit for really getting me off my ass and activating myself and engaging my elected representatives, because it's making a difference.
Absolutely,
from my perspective.
Man. Yeah, and a huge thank you to Jimenez. I hope we get the Big Phone Home back. I think he was doing incredible work, and it inspired people like you to do that.
It
and
did, 100%.
We don't have many like you in Australia doing that. So, I kind of look at someone like Ross Coulthard as like the new James McDonald. I hope he doesn't meet the same fate, but he's doing amazing work in establishing that relationship as a credible journalist. And meanwhile, we've got you just digging, man, and doing the hard work. The fact that they used all your questions, I mean, that blows my mind. That again, that's a credit to the work you put into it.
It blew mine as well.
Awesome.
And I mean, I've thankfully been in a position where I've had an opportunity to learn from some of the giants on this topic in Australia, like Ross Coulthard, Keith Basterfield, Bill Chalker, Paul Dean. Those guys have been putting in the hard yards for a long time on this topic. So I'm really standing on the shoulders of giants, trying to play my part and do what I can to ask questions and demand answers. And you can do that by exercising your right to information, by submitting Freedom of Information Act requests and engaging your elected representatives on this topic. So when the day comes that the Australian government acknowledges this topic and takes it seriously, I'll be having a pint, because that will be a day to celebrate for moving the Australian government in the direction it should.
Absolutely. And I'll be there right next to you with a Guinness, my friend. Well, I know you got to get going, so please tell us more about the Unexplained Rundown and where we can find everything you're up to.
Yeah, so Unexplained Rundown, I don't have as much time as I'd love to put out as much great content as I know you do, Ryan. And again, credit to you. I know we spoke about this off air, but I have a great appreciation for the time, energy, and effort and passion that folks like yourself and others put into delivering great content week after week, because it's not easy when you've got family life, competing priorities, and so on. So I don't put out as much content as I would like, but when I do, it's usually related to the topic of what is Australia doing about UAP. I had the great fortune and opportunity to have Brad Voorhees from Sonic Gravity on the show last year, and we had some really cool discussions. I did a passion project on deep dive exploration of Kurt Russell's encounter with the Phoenix Lights.
Yes.
And I was very, very, very excited to see the interview that you did with Jason McClellan not long ago. And he talked about his experience with the Phoenix Lights. So that's just a very small sample of the things that you'll find on my channel. If you want to follow me on Twitter, my handle is just @GrantLavac. I'm on Spotify. Just search for The Unexplained Rundown, or YouTube, type in my name, Grant Lavac, or The Unexplained Rundown, and you'll find my channel.
Awesome, man. And there should be a link right below there, guys, for Grant's YouTube channel. I got to thank you, man. I know your day is just starting over there. So thank you for breaking down UFO video of the week and for giving us the rundown on what's going on over there. I have hope. You're giving me hope, especially with the work you're doing. So I will say good night to you now, or good morning. I'm going to debrief with the audience here.
Grab another cup.
Absolutely. You're going to need it. You got a long day ahead of you. Thank you, Grant. It was a pleasure and honor. We're going to get you back on very soon, brother.
Pleasure's all mine, my friend. Thanks for having me on. It's I appreciate giving me opportunity just to talk with you and your listeners. So thanks.
Thank you so much. We'll talk soon.
All the best, buddy. Bye for
All
now.
right. Take care. Bye. Awesome, guys. I just knew. We didn't have to prepare too much. Grant has a wealth of information, and he's doing great work over there at the Unexplained Rundown. So check out the YouTube channel. Check out everything he's doing. Follow him on Twitter. You will not be disappointed. We covered a lot tonight. So only a few more things to cover with you guys to tease what's going on here at Somewhere in the Skies. Next, we have an episode dropping tonight. That is with the one and only Jazz Shaw, where we look at the mysterious Incident 88 from Project Blue Book. So be sure to check that out. It should be going out on podcast feeds within the next couple hours or so. If you want it a couple hours early, it's available on Patreon right now, patreon.com/somewhereskies. It's also on Apple Premium, so you can become a subscriber there as well if you use Apple. But yeah, guys, what an episode. Let me know in the comments below what you thought of UFO video of the week. And this is what I've got coming up here at Somewhere in the Skies. Our next 4 guests coming up. We have first, Richard Dolan is coming out of the shadows and doing one of his first interviews in a while. I think his last one might have been with Kurt Mungo. He will be on Somewhere in the Skies in the very near future, talking about everything UFOs in 2023. And I got so many listener questions for him. So it's going to actually be more of an Ask Me Anything, I think, which will be really cool to get you guys questions in there. Next up, we have got Henry Zabrowski from Last Podcast on the Left. This is so cool. Henry actually reached out to me maybe a couple months ago and told me he was a fan of the show. He loved everything we were doing over here. And I'm going to be going on Last Podcast on the Left. I was invited as a guest for their Patreon. So that's going to be happening very soon. But first, Henry is going to be coming on Somewhere in the Skies. We're going to be talking about all things UFOs with him as well, and how Last Podcast on the Left came to be. I want to know how it all started and all that. So that's going to be super fun. Next up, we have Amy Shiratito, who some of you might remember. She was on the show a couple times in the early run of Somewhere in the Skies, and she's a space historian. And she's also, I think she's a gamer as well on Twitch. She does everything. She's one of the icons in pop culture and video games and space and all that. So she's going to be coming on to talk about aliens and the fight for space, an awesome historical look at the women who inspired the space program in the US and kind of the fight for supremacy when it came to that. So that'll be really, really cool. And last up this month, we have the one and only Red Pill Junkie coming on the show, Miguel Romero. For those who might not have known his real name, that is his real name. He's going to be talking about anarchy in the UFO, this brilliant essay he did in a book I highly recommend called UFOs Reframing the Debate, which I had also the honor to supply an essay for. So you can find that on Amazon, UFOs Reframing the Debate. Edited and compiled by Robbie Graham. Miguel had an amazing essay in there. So we're going to talk all about that and everything else going on in UFOs. So a lot going on this month, guys. We also are starting Movie of the Month. For those of you who don't know, we do a movie review at least once a month here on Somewhere in the Skies, usually with my good buddies in New York City, Dennis Kahlo, Andrew Sanford, or Nicholas Westermeyer, or I should say, they're all on it at some point. And this month's movie is The Brother from Another Planet from 1984. So do yourself a favor, go watch the movie. I think it's on YouTube. I'm not going to lie, it was free. Don't tell anybody. I might get in trouble for that. Go watch the movie. We're going to do a review in mid-February on that as well. So that'll be super fun to get my filmmaker friends back on to talk all about that movie, a movie I'd never heard of, but it's fantastic. I already watched it. I can't wait to talk about it, and I hope you will join us for that as well. And I think that's it, guys. God, I had to. I had to, guys. I'm sorry. It was bound to happen. What's gonna happen with this weather balloon thing? Weather balloon. Let me know in the comments below. It's an unfolding story. I did not want to talk about it tonight. I know it came up briefly, but let me know what you think of that story as well. But that's it, guys. Click like, click subscribe. Somewhere in the live stream will grow and change. It's organic. I might have guests like Grant every now and again, or it might just be me. It might be the episode of the podcast for the following week, or it'll strictly remain a live stream. But this conversation with Grant will become a podcast episode because I absolutely loved it. So you can catch that on audio, hopefully in the near future as well. But that's it, guys. Thank you, as always, for joining me on your Sunday evening. Join me next Sunday for another Somewhere in the Live Stream. And maybe we'll have a mystery guest. Maybe we won't. I don't know yet. But I want to thank everyone in the chat as usual. I got a super chat at some point. I want to thank whoever gave us that. I think it was Metal Hendrix. So thank you. If you want to support the show, you can do it through Super Chat, Patreon, or become an Apple Premium subscriber right now. And with that, I'm going to let you guys go. Have a wonderful morning, afternoon, evening, whatever the saying is. Just have a good one. Keep looking up, as always, and keep your feet on the ground, but never stop searching somewhere in the skies. Have a great night, guys. We'll talk soon.